And welcome once again to this evening's episode of Conversations With, a web series organized by the Trinidad and Tobago chapter of the Internet Society and hosted by yours truly, Kevon Swift, alongside my co-moderator, Vice Chair of the Internet Society Trinidad and Tobago chapter, Miss Jacqueline Morris. Hi, Jackie.
Hey.
Right. So as a quick housekeeping note, please feel free to ask your questions at any time during this evening's conversation, either through the chat or you can use the raise hand function and we will allow you to make an intervention directly via the mic. Tonight's conversation, we have a specially invited guest, Mr. Mark White, who is the Managing Director of CMD Advertising Ltd. Mark is what you will call the quintessential digital advertiser, but Mark didn't always start along that path. So we are going to really discover Mark's trajectory from what we will say is the traditional advertising world into the digital. So let's get right into it. Great evening, Mark. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. I'm not sure I accept that compliment of being the quintessential digital advertiser, right? So I'm one of a number of I lead one of a number of agencies that do it. Okay, basically I wanted to say that just to create a context. Because yes, we have moved in our business from traditional to digital advertising. And of course, you know, I might want to change that word advertising to marketing communications.
Right.
But I think that much bigger and more significant than the move from traditional to digital in terms of media and creating work for those media, whether you completely swap from one to the other, or you do mixed and fully integrated media, which is generally advised. The far bigger issue at hand is digitization as opposed to digital media. And I think I would like to speak to that a bit because if you're trying to track the impact on my business or on business in general, and you do not speak to digitization, you will have missed the boat in what is really happening and what is the future and what is taking place.
And in mentioning that concept of digitization by whom exactly? Are you looking at specific sectors? Are you looking at the environment?
IT companies.
Okay. IT companies, entrepreneurs, their e-commerce presence is
IT, and I will go into that. So let's just take and what would drive those changes, okay? And what will be the peculiarities of a society like ours? So let's take a local peculiarity to understand ourselves in the context. You know, you operate in what they call scene media, the traditional media, press, radio, TV, out-of-home billboards, etc. They refer to those as scene media. And in more information-oriented societies, where clients and so on are prepared to invest in data and research, you would find that there's a fair amount of strategic planning in those media. Now, we can do it, the capacity and the ability to do it is there, but you have to afford the research. And in our market, it has generally been the agencies that have paid for the research because clients feel that that should just be a service that is provided rather than something that they would necessarily invest in like the rest of the world. And you can get your own GRPs and TRPs. You all know what those are?
No, I think you should unpack that a bit for not
okay, so you're basically looking at reach and frequency. And so you're doing a media plan. So if I do have research that gives me ratings, I know what percentage of I can actually use ratings to determine what percentage of my target audience I will reach if I put a particular ad at a particular time of day on a particular channel. That would apply to TV, that would apply to press. Of course, print media would also have ratings, and you can get a sense of how effective, say, a static billboard is if you have traffic statistics and so on. So you can compile a reasonable picture of how successful your communications are being. Along come digital media now, and that has been hugely transformative. And the attractions are really quite obvious. One of them, of course, is price. And it is seen as being more cost effective, but I'm not sure how long that will be. It will continue to be that way, because as those channels become more saturated, of course, the price factor. Let me just check my battery charge. Where's my battery? Oh, I'm good. Yeah, the price factor is going to start going up. Okay. But there are other attractions to digital media that are beyond price. Okay, is that it is the analytics and the reporting and the data. You can look at click-through rates, which are conversions. You can actually measure impressions. So you can set a target. I want to talk to this many people in this group. And you can actually develop a campaign where you can get data back at you, because it's all analytics, it's all recorded, data back at you, and telling you exactly how many people in these groups that you wanted to reach that you reached. You can track what types of communication were actually more effective. So you might be doing a particular target that has responded far more favorably to static posts than animations, hypothetically. Right. So you have a lot of information, and the numbers can tell you closer to a more exact story than in the traditional environment. So within on the client side of things, you'd understand immediately the attraction of such things. If I'm working for a boss who is demanding certain things from me, and I can delineate, I spent this money, I targeted this number of people, I reached this number of people, and this was my frequency, and this was how I got through, etc., etc., etc. I can put that in a report and send it. You also have, of course, the obvious convenience of it, because forgive my French, you don't have to get off your ass. You can sit on my laptop and do it. Right. And that's a big thing. And convenience is where you see growth in any sector. Ever since I've been in this business, which I joined in 1989, I've seen convenience be the thing that pushes growth. Right. So that is what the digital media have done. But in principle, notwithstanding the fact that you have, let us say, more precise or more present data, which updates every single moment of the day, is that the fundamental principles haven't changed. Right. If I'm looking to make people very aware of something new, for example, I'm going to be doing a reach campaign, because I need to reach a lot of people to tell them there's this new thing out there in the world. If I am, on the other hand, pushing something that everybody knows about already or has a very good idea of, I'm going to be looking for frequency. I want to keep hitting them with a message, because I'm not trying to educate them about the thing. Right. So you're going to be balancing those things, and you're going to have research on who your customers are and that kind of thing. It all applies. So the digital media did create opportunities and provide certain comforts, and is in a sense more cost effective, but it hasn't transformed the essential strategic thinking of the industry. And this is what people need to understand. So the advent of television, which they thought would destroy radio, did not destroy radio. Correct. Okay. And yes, press is suffering perhaps more than all traditional media, but it has to do with, of course, with our economies of scale. And because if you look at what the New York Times did, their first efforts online were failure, abject failure. But then they did their research and they realized that they can service a critical mass of 20 million online subscribers, which is enough for them to justify investment in the top journalists that anybody could buy. And they have their audience and they have their critical mass, and now they're functioning and surviving as a top publication. Correct. So there has to be transformation in a society like ours that is small. Economies of scale, of course, are very, very different. And I've actually told friends of mine in the media that, for example, your newspaper cannot expect to survive for much longer servicing Trinidad and Tobago. We do have the critical mass, 1.4 million. So on that same point of critical mass, I'm going to address a question that just came up in the chat. I wanted to ask you about the same size question. How often do you have clients coming to you with what I will call a readjusted expectation as to how far their marketing reach could go?
and what possibilities are there for digital media to facilitate market prospection activities and the like?
Okay, so I'm going to take a step back and answer that question differently.
Okay.
And then I'm going to give you the specific answer, because a straight question always deserves a straight answer. But the first thing is, you have to understand to an extent what digital media are saving clients from. Okay? The nebulous world of the creative mind. I don't think you can appreciate the resentment of many technocrats sitting down with somebody who is poorly dressed, trying to sell you some odd idea, which, you now have to try and wrestle with and accept may work for their brand. And that is now the digital media in large part are wresting that doubt. So that specificity and certainty, there's certainly going to be a greater comfort level with digital media. And then because their numbers and their targets and their, what they call eyeballs, and about the amount of people that your ad is reaching that are within your target, clients can now say, this is what I want to achieve, and I want to achieve it for this budget. And the budgets are going to be much smaller and the demands are going to be much higher. And so I'm not sure if that is completely answering your question, but that is what clients will expect, because they're going to say, well, I can spend this now and I can get this result.
Correct.
I have a very large client, who shall remain nameless, who has mandated, and it's a big client, one of the big clients in this market, that they will never do another press ad ever. They have made a decision that press doesn't work.
Right.
I don't think their research is 100% accurate, but it doesn't matter actually, because if they find out in 5 years' time they were wrong, the newspapers would be dead by that time, so it wouldn't matter. So
the limitation there would be the whole question of people who are connected, who are on social media, etc. But I guess it's a fair assumption to say, given the current trends, that is where they wanted to position themselves, and they are taking front on what could happen with press.
Yes, and one of the things I pointed out to people the other day, I was saying to them, look, the drive towards digital was ahead of the market reality. And in fact, the client, it was a fair at the time that we had to do digital. They didn't know what it meant. A lot of them still don't know what it means. A lot of the marketing people are going to say this. I hope none of them is here, because I've met very, very few people on the client side who actually understand marketing. All right. I hope none of them are here. I hope I don't lose a client. Let me look through the names quickly. And you can escape with that ignorance if only because you're working with an agency that can bolster it. One, hopefully you have such an agency, and two, because your boss probably doesn't grasp it either. Okay, so the ignorance level is relatively high, but people knew I have to have digital, whatever that meant. I had to be digital, and digital became a word. It became a word like .com. I have to have a .com, and there was the .com craze. Then it became the digital craze. So I think that the client anxiety and that desire to keep up actually pushed the envelope ahead of the market, and now the market is actually there and going even faster.
Right.
So the inevitability was present, whether it was client-driven, market-driven, or both. But the market reality is that is where people are.
So like a lot of things, you could say it's probably ideational. People have an idea and then it starts to make sense in practice as time goes by.
Well, to an extent, yes, because they feel that they're not keeping up, they're not modern, they're not doing this, they're not doing that, and then somebody whispers in the air at a cocktail party that they save 60% of their budget and got the same amount of reach and frequency doing digital, and then it starts. But again, the fundamental principles of the strategic thinking haven't changed.
Good.
And the evidence, while there is of course a shift more and more towards digital, the evidence is clear that more and more people are getting their information there. What are the other things? Sorry, go ahead.
No.
So what are the other things I wish to just to note quickly, is that people have to stop using terms that do not have a common understanding. So people are talking about the digital world and so on, but there's a big difference between digitization, which I mentioned earlier, which I'll talk about in a bit. And when I was talking to Jacqueline, I was talking about digitization. There's a big difference between digital media and digitization.
Correct.
2 worlds apart, 2 completely different things. And people also have to understand news. News. News is a variable.
Right.
News for person one could be, hey boy, you hear what went on down there, boy, a man get shoot. That is news. News for somebody who is willing to pay money to subscribe to the New York Times because he wants to read in-depth articles is also news. So that people have to understand, what things are and what different customers and consumers are looking for. So you can't treat news as a constant. You can't do those things. And too often people hold on to buzzwords or to words in conversation. Intelligent experts sometimes even hold on to words in conversation and assume that it means one thing when it actually does not. So you have to look at that.
All right, thanks a lot, Mark, for that. And I really want to unpack that idea of the buzzwords and how news is approached. But before we do so, I just want to call on Jackie to see what's going on in the chat. I think there are some comments or questions. Jackie? Okay. I think Jackie probably stepped away.
I haven't seen any yet.
Oh, okay.
Because I was looking, I can do show conversation, see them.
Sure. Yes, we have
what are the implications for the region? Rod Taylor says, what are the implications for the region of the tech giants who have very wide reach but make no investments or regulation in the region? What business models might work for us here in the Caribbean? Local media houses will lose revenue to the likes of Facebook. Do you market yourself as a savvy social media? We have to be savvy social media people. We have to know the hell we are doing. We have to know. And we have to know about geotagging. We have to know about geographic sectioning. You have to look at interests, whether you're on Facebook, wherever you are. You have to understand the dynamics between, who owns what. Facebook own IG. You have to understand all of that. You also have to understand that what you can do on Facebook in America, you can't do in Trinidad. We can't put up certain ads on YouTube in Trinidad because they're not prepared to accept that we can advertise alcohol in the public domain. And they're not prepared to even take the time. We have that direct experience where a representative was chased out of a room by his supervisor at Google because Google said, you can't be coming to waste my time to talk about a place called Trinidad and Tobago with 1.4 million people. Get out. Okay, so you have to understand all those nuances, right? But yes, of course, revenue is going to be leaving local media and heading out the international providers like Facebook and Google. There's absolutely no 2 ways about it. And IG, and people are going to have YouTube channels, and that's a foreign exchange drain, and that is inescapable. We're not Brazil. We don't have our own. That's going to happen. And if you are not prepared to understand social media and digital or online advertising, then you're going to die because you're going to be a dinosaur waddling in the mud, liming in the carpet.
So further to Rodney's question, and proprietary platforms aside, are you saying that you don't think that in our environment, do we have enough mass to make an impact on these proprietary platforms? Because I doubt we can create our own at this point.
I don't think we can.
Thanks for
the question. Right. We have direct experience of, come on, man, 1.4 million people. Oh God, don't waste my time now dealing with serious things. Okay, so we have actually had foreign-based clients, like, for example, we have clients who, let's say, have a local client, but they are a distributor for a foreign brand.
Right.
It's not uncommon. And then we get hauled over the coals for not doing something that they do. Okay, and then we have to go and show them, look, the regulations here are different from your regulations. What you can do in America, you can't do here. Right. Also, these regulations and these opportunities are changing rapidly. The other day, there were 3 changes in what you could do on Facebook in 1 week.
Wow.
So if you think that what you knew last week or last month is the benchmark that could, keep you planning, well, that is going to be an error. To answer Mr. Taylor's question, though, he's looking at tech giants who have very wide reach but make no investment or well, they have their regulations for our region, but they are not in charge of regulation, indigenous regulation. So that's a good question. But yes, they have wide reach, and no, they don't give a damn. And basically, Google and Facebook run in the world in terms of online information, aren't they? Isn't that the reality?
Right.
I think so. I don't think there's, you know, I don't think there's any question about it. And the use of cookies and all of that. In fact, they say that Zuckerberg and them actually track you more than the CIA. They're doing more to track you, and I can tell you, I have been on a site just checking out some stuff, and I get a pop-up within minutes on Amazon based on what I was looking at as an interest suggestion for purchase.
Right.
So there is no two ways about it. But I think that's a fairly political question too, Mr. Taylor. But I'm not sure what we can do about it. It is going to drain out foreign exchange, and it is going to weaken indigenous media. Yes, for sure. No two ways about it.
I have a question on that, and I take on board the point you raised about 1.4 not being attractive. What about the 70 million reach through CARICOM, and what has been experienced in the past with inter-island collaboration?
Yes, no, that's a big question, and take it even bigger, because what I was saying to a media house the other day, and yes, Lisa, I'm seeing your question, is that, guys, come on, man. You have a whole flipping diaspora of people out there.
Correct.
You have a whole diaspora, and an IP address could tell you where the person is, so you know what ad to give them. You have a whole migration in Canada. You have a whole migration in Miami, Georgia, London, New York. Millions of people who, as you know, have a surviving interest in the Caribbean. Because it is not to say that people migrated 20 years ago and the migration has stopped. You're having a cultural reinforcement on an ongoing basis. So the Trinidadianness or the Jamaicanness of people persists. It persists. And, if I had some, my friends in the media might shoot me, but if I had a printing press to publish newspapers, I might open it as a museum, as a historical, and I would create an online paper. I would phase out the printing press, and I would sell to the Caribbean wide, to the diaspora.
Right.
I would sell advertising through agents. So you could, if I'm in Toronto and I want to pull up the Express or the Guardian, the Newsday, or the Jamaican Gleaner, or what have you, the ad that would hit me would be relevant.
Correct.
And the people who would want to advertise to those markets, because there is a West Indian faction over there, and there are people who are interested in the West Indies. And then there's ethnicity. Even if you go to West India, which is, you're basically talking black people, African people, whatever term you want to use, and of course, in terms of Guyana, Suriname, Trinidad, and Tobago, you're talking substantial Indian populations. Ethnically, you would find that, look, we have, for example, here, the African Film Festival. It generates a lot of interest. Why does the African Film Festival generate interest in Trinidad and Tobago? Because Africa is part of what we are. It's a connection that we have. It's a thing that we need to understand. Similarly, and we could go on, but my point is, you can't just sit down and figure the 1.4 or even the 17 is your answer.
Correct.
You have to find a way. Now, of course, there is history to say that it's not easy, because radio stations that did it, for example, when GEM started off, before it became what it is now, in the early days of GEM radio, and they were doing regional news, people lost interest in them, because nobody in Trinidad care if somebody get beaten in Antigua, because you have parochial issues that you're dealing with. But we also have a globalization of mindset taking place. I have a son who has grown up and he lives in France, and he knows and listens to all the same songs as his friend here in Trinidad, and his other friend who's European, who now lives in Ghana, I think.
Correct.
They're all on the same page with the music. They talk, my four sons, they talk to each other about music. They all know the same music. They're all listening to similar things. They're all discussing the same issues. One is in California, one is here, one is in Australia, and one is in France.
Right.
So you have to broaden the concept of what you are and who you can speak to and who be interested in you, and speak to that. Otherwise, you're not going to survive.
I mean, that right there just shows an advantage in knowing your customer and determining what your reach is. The globalized effect is something to take into account. I think that's very important for clients to capitalize on. But I want to also recognize Lisa's question. Lisa Ramnath is asking, what would you say that the COVID-19 pandemic has pushed clients into digital media more than they were ready? Or would you say that, the COVID-19 pandemic has pushed clients more into this?
What COVID-19 has done is, I'll quote a term from a competitor of mine. He says that our clients are now defending the bottom line.
Right.
People losing money left, right, and center. Okay. I was talking to a guy and he said, Mark, right now, I can't say who he is, of course, but he is somebody that we do work for very occasionally, and he's somebody I've known for years. And he's saying, Mark, right now, I have 3 ships under lease that are paying lease for that have no cargo. I have signed contracts for the purchase of stuff that I can't use when it gets here. And the stuff I can use, but I won't be able to use until this thing is lifted, I'm paying serious warehouse rates to keep it in air-conditioned environment. And people are going home. So what happens in in realities like this, and I'm not sure, I do not know if anybody really sat down and worked out what are the financial implications of the lockdown. But yes, if I'm defending my bottom line, I'm going to look for the most cost-effective, and some people cannot separate the difference between cost-effective and cheapest. And we leave that academic point to itself. Yes, Lisa, the answer is yes. It will have driven people that when they do decide to communicate something, they want to do it as much as possible in what costs them the least money. I even had a client look at me, if you want to understand that, Lisa, a client called me the other day to ask me if I'm producing a television for them because she thought that I might be soon. I would have to tell the production house that is doing the TV that they have to be prepared to do the job and get paid sometime in the future and not on time.
Right.
Okay, so you understand? Yes. So the answer to that question is yes, it will push them there, and whether they were ready or not, yes, they will have to go in their own mind.
So piggybacking off of Lisa's question, what is different now compared to the past when dealing with new clients and digital marcoms?
Well, that's an easy answer.
Compelling.
That's an easy answer.
A compelling alternative.
This reality, I was sitting down with my fellow directors and so on, and we were drafting a strategy for this reality before COVID.
Right.
What COVID has done is, a catalyst is a substance which, although present in small proportion, alters the rate of chemical reaction, remaining itself unchanged at the end of reaction. Well, this is not a small proportion.
Mm-hmm.
COVID has been an accelerant of what was inevitable. So I was sitting down there strategizing, ruling out how I would reshape, what I would become, what I would have to do to be a viable entity, because the full service agency, as we are structured now, is not the future structure of an agency. Not in terms of its agility and its fundamental structures and so on, it is not. But what I thought I had a year or two to strategize and roll out, because structural changes they require capital. So we were planning this, and then lo and behold, we get shut down in March of 2020.
There you go.
And the reality that I was planning for happened overnight. And then the capital to finance that reality was taken from me because clients have stopped using my services. And I mean, I don't think I'm saying anything. I mean, my boss can't beat me up because I am the boss. So I lost, they just lose 90-something% of your revenue overnight.
Yeah, it's
kind of tough. And then we build back up, and then we are now back in a not dissimilar situation. So we're back in this mode. And you do what you do to survive. So you find yourself deprived of the capital to make certain changes that you knew were coming. But the proper answer to your question, because I'm going all over the place, the proper answer to your question is this. It was going to happen. it was on the cards. It was inevitable. It's just that COVID has accelerated it, taking it from maybe a year or two to overnight, and then remove capital from the system that you would have used to finance that process.
Right. All right. You're actually drawing a lot of similarities with our previous guest, Mr. Kirk Henry from iGovTT, who was saying that he had actually entered a couple of scenario planning type activities way before the pandemic, so that by the time the pandemic hit, it was pretty, as you say, inevitable that one of these scenarios would have had to come into effect. And that sort of switch, I guess it really depends on how well or how much someone is on a strategic level to be able to navigate through the switch. And you having suffered at first that huge loss and being able to come.
But we are back in the loss scenario, and we are surviving, and we are doing what we need to do. And certain things are happening, but they're happening more slowly than I would have liked them to happen, because I didn't want to take a year or two to actually achieve what I needed to achieve. I wanted it to be quicker, but reality is reality. And so, yes. So that I hope that answers your question.
All right. I'm not seeing any other questions right now, but just a reminder to everyone who's following, please feel free to drop a question in the chat or raise your hand, and we will acknowledge who is raising their hand and could give you the virtual floor. I wanted to, in the meantime, engage you, Mark, with a question about new GTLDs. Are you familiar with the GTLDs?
Just save me the acronym now and tell me what it is.
Basically, it's like new domains of website suffixes. So, you've got the .net, .com, and so on. Now you can get a .Jacqueline, a .mark.
Yeah.
Or in our situation, a .carnival, a .juve, that sort of thing. How do well, obviously you heard about the story that went on this weekend.
Yeah, he said that he will rename it.
Yes, he did. What do you think about that?
Well, I think that as far as I'm aware, I could be wrong, but historically, I believe the first time that the world at an international level saw Tantana and Saga Boy mass was out of Jamaica. Okay, and I leave Trinidad and Tobago right there with that comment. All right.
Right.
So,
yeah. Does that answer your question, Jacqueline?
Yeah, but the question is, how do we use things like that in the marketing of your product? It's very expensive to get one.
Yeah, if you can get those sites, I'll be honest and say I haven't had much request or had much opportunity to do that. But with particular clients I have, but obviously these things are going to be useful. I mean, if I want to push Juve and I'm .juve, if I, you go and you look for things, it is like, of course, those suffixes are going to be helpful in terms of your branding and your marketing, and you claim to a mental space. But I don't think that they're going to be the be all and end all. They're nice to have, and they have function, and they give you a bit of ownership. But I don't think it's the be all and end all of it.
So, Mark, another interesting question coming from that: what does the Made in TNT brand look like on a global digital platform? What do your clients ask for? Do they want to have a Made in TNT brand to begin with, or do they want to not appear as that? Could you tell us?
No, it's a good question. I don't have profound information or insight into it. I do not know how it has been supported abroad, and I do not know whether any real in-depth research was done to see whether it is a value that creates a response that is positive. I don't know the answers to those questions. Okay. I would like to think that some of those questions, the answers to those would be yes, they did the research, and yes, they know. The only recent interest I had a client express in Made in TNT was actually it is a foreign brand with a local connection, and they were wanting to be able to use it to get a nationalist benefit.
So localization and selling to us, but in terms of us selling to out there, it's still.
Well, I don't know. You'd have to ask. I think it's the TTMA, right? You'd have to ask them what research they did and what evidence they have that there's a value in it. And or is that value, does a story need to be told about that value? You know, because you could have gold, huh? But if you put it on the shelf and nobody knows it's gold, they're not gonna pick it up.
Right.
You need, and I think that, and I wanted to dispel a myth. I wanted to dispel it now, especially in this world that we are living in. People still think, on the client side of things, and many agencies as well, because we operate in a single intellectual space, perhaps, that a nice idea is going to move the market. And you come up and tell somebody something, well, boy, look at making TNT. You know, there was a particular minister, now deceased, who changed our street signs in Port of Spain, remember? So you had not only Richmond Road, but you'd have Calle Richmond. And we put some Spanish on the highway. I hope it was idiomatically correct. I don't speak Spanish, so I don't know. But I don't. It wasn't.
We continue.
but I don't think that will make us bilingual somehow.
Correct.
You know, and people don't understand that you have to put the money, and you have to put the money intelligently behind things if you want them to work for you. You know, we are lamenting the amount of Venezuelan immigrants. I personally don't have an issue with it, but we are lamenting it. But how many of these people are educated people that you could bring to teach people in Trinidad and Tobago Spanish? We are sitting on a bilingual opportunity that could make us more marketable to the world that sits right on our doorstep, namely South America. Are we utilizing it? Or is it simply xenophobia, anti-immigrant xenophobia that we haven't got past? And where are the thinkers? What are they doing with it? So I cannot speak with any authority on the made in TNT. I haven't had a requirement to use it for any of my clients. So basically what we do, we tend to become experts in all our clients' businesses. You know, so I've written a lot of bank ads, so I know a hell of a lot about banking. Not that I'm a financial person, but I know a hell of a lot about banking because I've been writing bank ads for 32 years and working with them. So I don't have any authority on the TNT thing. I just hope that they did their research, and if it doesn't have a recognizable value, that they have found a story to tell that will give it such.
What I wanted to ask is to go back a little bit and talk about the digitalization and the mindset change that has to happen, because we've got to, there has to be this entire change of mindset in order to move into a real digital space, to do your business digitally, to change how everything works.
Yeah.
And is that an opportunity for advertising to support that kind of change?
Okay, well, that's two questions. I'll go with the digitalization thing first because I have been thinking a lot about it and I've been looking at it a lot. And I'm going to ask everybody here a question. How much time do I have, by the way? It's 7:39. I'm not in a rush. What is your time limit?
So we usually go for an hour.
All right, that's cool. Yeah. So what is your emotional sentiment towards Amazon? Do you like them? You don't like them? You feel affection for them if you connected to them?
Personally,
Be honest. Don't overthink it. Just give me an honest answer.
I don't think I need to like them. I think they're really useful.
But that's an
They help me a lot.
Jacqueline,
but I can't.
Jacqueline,
I don't love them or not.
No. But that's an intellectual response where you thought about it.
Okay.
How do you really feel about Amazon spontaneously?
It's convenient.
That's another intellectual response.
When you go there.
Neutral.
You're neutral?
I live on Amazon.
You love Amazon?
I live on Amazon.
So do I. As the only way I give myself presents, and I actually am confined, but I actually have a deep affection for Amazon. And I have been thinking about it, and I would invite all of us to think about it, regardless of what we think our intellectual responses are. And it's not me denying that you're neutral, Jacqueline. Why do I love Amazon?
I would say I love H&M. I love H&M.
Why do you love H&M?
Because they just know what I want when I need it.
Thank you.
There you go.
Thank you. Thank you.
They
Thank
have
you.
intelligence
You
behind
have
their
just said
service.
You know,
why
it's kind of
digitization
like
taking over the world. Okay, so for you it's H&M, for me and Lisa it's Amazon, for other people it's other sites. But did you ever meet Mr. H&M? Did you ever talk to him over a counter, or Mrs. H&M?
no.
You're dealing with a robot, aren't you? You're dealing with automation, aren't you, Jacqueline?
Absolutely.
You're in love with automation.
I've given them enough information that they can.
Yeah. Yes, and they have
they can push my buttons and pull the triggers.
And I can tell you from marketing and life that if I push your buttons, even if I'm telling you beforehand that I'm pushing your buttons, I'm going to get a 90-something% response that I want. Okay, so there we are. I own a business now. So let's take a look at advertising. I say, Mark, I own a business called Google Ref Slippers. You know, you're like local thing, Google Ref making a brand of slippers.
Mhm.
Oh my God.
All right. I can't imagine that being at all comfortable, but okay, let's go with it. And and I need to reach customers across every channel they're on. So Jacqueline Morris is a customer of mine, and I can track on WhatsApp, Facebook, IG, every single channel that she's using, and I can be there and give her what she needs, when she needs it, as she needs it, how she needs it. I can be more responsive than any other previous retail experience. I can arrange to make my business more responsive, than any other retail experience you have ever had in your damn life. Not so? And that's why you love H&M, but H&M is automation. You ain't loving people there. You loving a service, you loving a connection, you loving ease, you loving convenience, and you're getting a response that seems to satisfy what you genuinely want. Right. And the fact that it is coming from a computer does not bother you in the slightest. So we now take that reality, and I'm thank you for putting it that way, by the way, Jacqueline, because you actually summed up my entire argument. So now I don't have to be flicking my eye to my notebook. You know, I'm over 60, I'm heading into 62, probably memory and too good again. So you asked how that will impact on advertising. Okay. And so we have moved now, the conversation has moved from digital media to digitization, and effectively digitization of the experience. Okay? And what automation and these things can do for you. And how, for example, software programs and things that I can, if I was certain, so I could come and talk to a customer online right now. And with the correct software, I could, in a couple of minutes, see the entire history, their shopping history, what they've done, what they've not done, the age, all the information. And I don't have to say, okay, well, that's really interesting. I'll call you back. I hope to get another call with somebody who's busy. I can answer all their questions and talk to them as if I know every single thing about their lives. Mm-hmm. Looking at a screen while I talk to them. And I can pull up that information and I can close the deal and I can reach them. And I can build highly personalized relationships with my customers. If I am now a corporate entity, and I could go on about it, but I think we get the point. If I am now a corporate entity and I have X dollars to invest in raising my revenues, and I realize that software packages that allow me to track customer behavior and speak to them according to their needs and wants based on their behavior by channel, across channels. So Jacqueline on WhatsApp, whatever, however, but it won't be WhatsApp, but I can mark it on WhatsApp. But let's say, but Jacqueline, I'm meeting on Facebook, I'm talking to her here, I'm talking to her there. It's the same Jacqueline. She's not getting that. It's not like when I was catching my tail as a teacher many years ago. I opened an account in Republican Lawn Circle and one in Republican before it was Bank of, when it was after it took over Bank of Commerce in Maraval. And I used to dance the money around between the two accounts, so they would take them 2 weeks to realize that Mark was broke. You know, you wouldn't have that problem today, would you? Because the digitization, they would have you like that. So but I'm digressing. If I could take that money that I have to invest, right? the dark side of big data analytics. Rodney Taylor, you're a politician. The thing is that, and there's a dark side to everything. The thing is that if I had money to invest and I could increase my revenues dramatically, right, through digitization, that is money I don't have to spend on marketing. Okay? You can go to organizations and you can get decision-making software. In fact, I now have a shareholding in a tech company that we represent some of the big players in this part of the world, and I'm trying to work out the launch of it. But that's not a sales pitch. The thing is that they have decision-making software that could track you. Even they could even get into bits of the dark web and track you. So you come now to want a policy, and I can in 2 or 3 minutes know exactly the size of your risk, whether you're telling me the truth or not, whether you're trying to scam me, whether the accident you had, where it really went as you described it. So an insurance company, for example, using that kind of analytic software and that decision-making software could save itself millions of dollars, because they have calculated how many millions a year they lose in false claims and these things. They have software that could chop that down to nearly nothing.
Right.
Then if I can personalize my service, how much does HMN make from you, Jacqueline, that they would have, and how easily would they make it from you where they wouldn't have to spend money in an agency, digital media or otherwise, to get your business? You are a low-hanging fruit. They have established a relationship with you. They can drive revenues up without spending another cent on marketing because they now have engagement, direct engagement. So I think that
they know exactly what time to send the message as well.
Yeah, they send it to you at the right time. They know.
They know when I open the email, so they know what time to send the email. So it pops up at the top, just what I'm going to check.
And what isn't overloaded.
So I like that. Jackie likes automation. I think she explained fully why she loves H&M. Mark loves Amazon. Mark, with the work that you do or with you through your clients, have you ever seen any pushback on the side of privacy concerns coming from a particular initiative that didn't play out as one would have liked? Do you see privacy concerns rearing its head in the Trinidad or the Caribbean experience? Are we more the European side of things, or are we more American free market type?
I think it is. While I take the time to think about that question, I will jump and say, of course, we're more American because I know we are, and but it is interesting. They say that the current customer is way more savvy than the old school customer.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm not sure I 100% buy that, but the current customer, I can tell you for sure, has no issue about being marketed to.
Right.
That is a very, very interesting thing. You know, they used to say long ago when I just joined advertising at 1989, actually, one of the things they used to do, they used to differentiate between British culture and American culture. And they say, the British love to buy, so you have to be subtle. And the Americans love to sell. You know Americans are saying, we got this, man, we have. But that is changing. But in terms of privacy, what is privacy? You accepting cookies on a site because you want to read an article. That's an issue on privacy. How many of us, when was the last time you refused to accept, Mr. Taylor, let me ask you, when was the last time you refused to click accept cookies?
Just give me 1 second that I can get Rodney's mic on.
Right.
He says recently.
Recently.
Very good. I have a son who won't do it. I do it because I don't give a damn. But it's dangerous because I realized that they know so much about me.
Hi.
But
we get on mic.
Sorry.
Yeah, 2 seconds. I totally get what you're saying. And the truth is, if you don't accept the cookies, you don't really go very far. So you accept the cookies and maybe you purge your web browser after. But if you're savvy enough. But I know, there are hundreds and thousands of different data points that they get on you on the very basic sites. But you have more or less to accept the cookies to really get any value from the website. I agree.
Yeah, I agree. And let me ask a question. You think when you purge it, you really purge it?
Not really.
No, you really purge
As a matter of fact, it's not even about browsing anymore. It's just about even visiting places and seeing an ad pop up from your location tracker.
Yep, exactly, because it's tracking you. Exactly. So it's all there. So the question is, ask yourself, when I go to I click on certain sites out of an intellectual interest, and Amazon suddenly pops me up something very relevant to that. The other day I was looking at something online, and I've started getting a set of IG ads relevant to that thing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so they track me, obviously. Obviously, I'm being tracked. How bothered am I about it? Do you really get angry when HMB reaches out to you? Jacqueline, do I get angry when Amazon reaches out to me?
It's a cost benefit thing, because it's really, is this useful? It's annoying when people track you and give you things you don't want. But privacy, our data is currency. We give up some data, we get back something. Whether it's 10% off something that you really wanted. So Amazon has seen you go and look at this thing and you didn't buy it. So why not send you a 10% off and see if you'll buy it then?
Indeed, but the privacy is a very real issue. And was it Sweden that they actually started putting chips in their hands, in their fingers recently? I made a joke that was coming, and there it is. So privacy, how do I feel about privacy? No, I haven't really I don't think that we are that advanced for that privacy to really be an issue. We're still there fighting about whether we should take vaccinations or not. And like the rest of the world, I'm just sticking that in. But I think that when people find things of interest to them and so on, I think it gives them comfort. And I think that the algorithm is actually kind of dangerous personally, because BBC was talking about it a couple of years ago, that you actually have to start liking things you don't like, otherwise you get a narrow cast and you think you're talking to the world and hearing the world, but you're really just hearing a very small group of people on Facebook and so on and IG who share your point of view, because the algorithm narrows your cast. And so what is happening is that it's helping you. So we're getting multiple bubbles rather than broader views for a lot of people. So that is something that we have to watch.
That's why they get surprised when you have things like elections and they get surprised by the results, because all of their friends, all of the people in their experience are of like mind, but they don't realize or don't understand.
This size. This is their size. Yeah, that's the size of their group in the world. And they're shocked.
Remind us, is the echo chamber effect. But one of the things, that's something people are talking about, because it has led to greater and greater polarization.
Yes.
But one of the things that the internet was really super useful for was getting together people who might have been isolated. The one boy who liked ballet in a town in Italy where everybody was playing football.
Yes.
And he could find one boy in Florida who liked ballet in a place where everybody was playing American football. And they could join up and have some sort of connection and not be alone or lonely. But it's gone beyond now.
Yes, of course. But the issue of privacy is real and it's serious. Have I encountered pushback in my experience? No, we have not.
Right.
I am a member of the AAATT, and I haven't heard it surface once as an issue that an agency is experiencing, which would be the specific answer to that question. Mr. Taylor, Rodney, you and I must lime a day when we don't have to wear masks, maybe in the year 50. That I'm not qualified, I think, to speak about Cambridge Analytica, but there's a dark side to all of this, of course. And people who have power and want control will always have power and want control. I think the Matrix summed it up when Neo asked what the Merovingian wants. And she said, well, what all men with power want, more power. Barack, I think more than he used drones, he killed more people in Pakistan and other places with drone attacks than the previous two presidents combined, although I love his eloquence. Some of his decisions were obscene. And that you could sit down and push some buttons, and that the CIA finally admitted in a very important documentary, End of Empire, put on by Thames. Anybody here old enough to remember Thames? Anyhow. And basically the CIA admitted that to overthrow democracy in Iran and to create this furor that we are living with today, they control the newspapers through tycoons. So the CIA actually wrote the articles in newspapers in those days would have been highly influential.
And interestingly,
So
that's not
why
new.
would that
That's not
change?
new at all. There are a lot of publications on the soft power of information policy in the US, and they said their input or their intro into bringing down, well, to stopping the Cold War was when the media regulators within the USSR became relaxed, and they started showing Dallas. And all of these glamorous super capitalist ideas, which really unsettled people because the media regulators decided to just ease up a bit. So there's a true and there's a history and there's a truth in the power of information and being able to manipulate those things.
I'm going to share something on screen because we're running out of time and I'm running out of battery. Let me just get my battery. I know we are running out of time and that you all have given me an hour, and I will give you a comment.
You can take another 5 minutes or so.
No, I'm cool, you know. I talk and I good.
All right.
I can hide from my demanding job by talking to you all and justify it. The thing is that Homo sapiens migrated out of Africa eons ago, and he encountered his cousin Homo neanderthal. And as typical, they mated, they reproduced, and Homo sapiens drove Homo neanderthal to extinction ultimately. And they believe that the Rock of Gibraltar was the last home of Homo neanderthal before he died. And there are people, including myself, because I've done my DNA testing, who carry Neanderthal genes to this day, and the people who have the least amount for obvious migratory reasons will be Africans. But the point is, the current theory is that the current theory. Yes. What do I have to do to let? Oh God, yes. I had my computer updated, so I have to reopen my ability to share my screen. Just give me 5 seconds.
Sure.
Right, good. I can do it now. And they say they believe now. Are you seeing my screen?
Not as.
Or let me try again. Share. Is it share tray? Where's share screen?
Yeah, open share tray next to your mic.
Yes,
Press
I've just
the
opened it.
leave button.
Right, I've done it, and a recording. Okay, good. Yes, anyhow, they say that they believe that Homo neanderthal was driven to extinction because Homo sapiens had better communication. And I'm just going to cover my camera for a second. Okay. Yes, and I'm not seeing. I can't share my screen. Why is it not working? It usually does. Yes, I've covered it. Yeah. Then I covered it. Yeah. Show device. So I'm sorry about this. What I don't understand is that why I'm not getting to share my screen. But okay, so they say it was communications that really gave Homo sapiens the advantage, because Homo neanderthal had a larger brain. He was probably at least equally intelligent, and he was physically stronger. But they're saying that communications and social intelligence is a theory. It hasn't been proven, or it hasn't. I'm not sure how believed it is at this point. That it was communication. And when they were looking at, that primitive figure, the Madonna figure they have?
Mm-hmm.
All right, am I back on camera? I just put it back on.
Yes, you are.
Right, that they thought, at one point they're looking at it, well, it was a similar position on an idea that led to it being so similar in many places. But they've actually realized it was probably a style of art that was shared across large areas, which speaks to communication. And if that is a driver of conquest and power, and one of the things that has defined us as a species compared to other species on this planet, you find that it's an interesting consideration to ask people what they're doing with big data. And I find that very interesting. And I want to ask you a question while I suffer with the tech. This is embarrassing because I've used this program so many times. and I don't understand why it's not allowing me to share my screen. Let me go into let me try again. Yeah, if I asked you to describe the modern marketing department, or I see people I know who have businesses and so on this call, describe what how your marketing department is made up. Who is in it? Who are you employing in your marketing department? I would like anybody or a couple of people to tell me what they think that would be.
Yeah. I mean, for those on the call, it'd be great if you could just pop your answer in the chat. We can read it very quickly.
Lisa, you there?
Mr. White?
Yes, I am suffering with this, and let me not curse, I'm in public. This damned reset laptop, and I can't share screen. I'm going to send you something I want you to share. Please, I'm going to send it by WhatsApp.
No problem.
All right, and you'll be able to put it up?
Mm-hmm.
All right, and now suddenly my WhatsApp is giving trouble. Why is that?
Right. So in the meantime, you do have a response from Richard Padilla, who says in his marketing department it's he, himself, and Google.
All right. So you are a freelancer, Richard? Richard, are you a freelancer?
No.
All right. Can you provide more information about yourself?
Maybe Richard might, maybe you're muted, Richard, speak to talk.
Sorry?
Just now. I thought Richard would have been because he's on the executive, but okay, now he can.
Former IT professor, now in food business using Google Business. Ah, okay. So you are you're marketing, you're basically a Google marketer for personal business. So you are marketing department of one. Fennec, my friend, I want to put you on the spot. Are you still here?
All right. So you confirmed the assumption about Richard. We're not hearing from
Fennec. Fennec is still here, man. Fennec, tell me a message.
I think he's still here.
I think he is. And Lisa's putting up this thing. All right. You need to make it bigger than that, though, Lisa. Here, magnify. All right. You know, people would say that I'd have a brand manager, and oh God, the quality of this is really poor now. Oh, Lord.
Mark, walk us through it in any case. I guess we can pick up from there.
I'm going to have to get you a better copy.
Okay.
It won't make sense. Actually, okay, I will walk you through it. That is what I will do. I'll just open it on my machine where it is still clear. All right. Basically, you know that the marketing department would traditionally have had what in it? It would have had a brand manager, a marketing manager, and maybe a senior marketing manager, right? But would they have had a person projecting digital trends and this kind of thing? If you understand what I mean. In other words, it has completely transformed from what it was to what it will be. And I'm going to have to give you a clear thing, because I actually look at this chart over and over myself to remind myself of where we are going. And I think it is important for us to look at it and so on. So I want to send you a better copy, Lisa. I'm sorry about this, everyone. I thought I had it on my machine already, and it seems to have been wiped. Oh dear. Let's see if I find another one then. Okay, I'm going to take questions while I search, guys. Come, ask me something. Ask me something interesting.
Okay. What would you advise someone who's in the marketing and advertising business, but who got all but who doesn't have, who's concerned about how do they get to digital first thinking, because maybe they're a little older, they didn't start off with that, they're good with the tools, but do they have the thinking? What would you advise them to do?
Probably if they can't get it, they should retire. Or, to be honest, I think that I tell people all the time that the only way I stay intelligent is I surround myself with people brighter than myself. And, there are people who are very successful CEOs and managers or owners of companies that don't necessarily have to have the specific skill sets that they employ experts to have. What they do have to do, though, is understand the principles that govern these things and be able to see the simple logic of trends and where things are going. And I think that in large part, that is what I've been talking about a lot today, in that, or at least attempting to, that where I sit, I can see where things are going, because it's not rocket science where things are going. It is, it is why I've got into this whole digitization thing, and I've been trying to broaden the conversation with people about digitization. Tracy would know this, Hackshaw. He was on the call. I'm not sure if he still is, because we were having this conversation, Tracy, if you'd remember. And I thought that the digital issue had more to do with what Jacqueline was talking about, which is the digitization of life and lifestyles, and the ability of corporations to follow leads, onboard customers, keep them, grow them, groom them without formal advertising. And now that I found a better image of the Agile Marketing Organization, the headline in that chart reads, guys, the 2020 Marketing Department. And flexibility means having new skills for the entire team, okay? Flexibility means being able to find new talent when needed. That is what it says. This is almost impossible with a fixed team. So you understand one transformation right there. Fixed team almost makes it impossible to be a flexible marketing department. And this is where we're going. Some in different parts of the world, we're in different stages, but this is where we're going. And only the really famous brands will be able to recruit talent. And other companies will be forced to call upon that talent from outside, maybe agencies and so on. And that is the truth of it. That is the truth of it. So, the whole thing is, I think a profound challenge is that we are operating in a state of flux. Correct. But you need intellects that have comprehension of history and continuity to guide that flux. And very often, and it is a reality that you bring in somebody who is equipped to do something very quickly or easily, or something in the digital space, and say, I must have this person. But they don't have the maturity or reference to understand the implications of what they're doing, and they can't give profound or real advice in terms of the strategic thinking aspect of things to their clients. But they can execute at a certain level. So, some of the old skills, some of the intellectual balances still obtain and must obtain. But what will happen too, though, is that you do need people who live in a certain world and who execute things. If you're coming up with hashtags, for example, you're not going to ask somebody who has never followed a hashtag in his or her life, or never, to come up with a good hashtag. Right. You need people who live in the world, but you also need people who understand the world bigger picture to guide and supervise that thing. Because I had, for example, a PR person, this is a while ago, I had a PR person that could not do PR for anything more than a little article in the paper. Could not talk to a client because they didn't have the experience, the interest to understand business issues. So you're not going to sit down with a neophyte because they're good at social media. And we didn't talk about the difference between digital advertising and social media. Two completely different things again, but we all know that, so don't have to go into it. That person could not sit down in a room with anybody who's running a business or owns a business who's looking for strategic thought to influence their public relations drive, because they just didn't have the wherewithal, they didn't have comprehension of the world. Right. but they could call a newspaper and get an article. So, you know, I call it the composite intelligence. And that if you look at your organization as a single intelligence, effective intelligence, you have to look at how you're composing it, you know, and you have to understand that you're bringing all these things together to create a single functional brain, if you will.
Right.
And it has to be flexible. So if you look at it now, this modern marketing department, that light blue area says smaller marketing. And then you have the two black areas below one. The first one says long-term strategy and vision, and the other one says project leaders. And then you have all the satellites. One of them is the data expert. One of them is the creativity guy. Then there's the co-creation expert. There's the trend expert. There's a copywriting expert in there. There's a mobile expert. There's a technology expert. And there's a community guy. A community manager, person who understands community and you know, and that community in the digital sense of the word.
Correct.
I don't think anybody running an organization in Trinidad has yet come to a point where that is what their marketing department would look like. And I'm really sorry about the quality of the image, guys. I really apologize, because it is. I wonder if this one is any better, because it was really quite an important thing.
It's quite clear, actually. So, yeah.
You all are seeing it clearly?
Yeah.
All right, good. All right, well, I'm glad. So that said, you know, that you understand that this is where the world is going and this is where it is. But I don't think, and if we have any CEOs or senior businessmen who are in this call, they can ask themselves whether their marketing department looks like this. Right. I'm not saying it is going to be this today, but it's going to be this. It is this in other parts of the world already, and it will become this.
Right.
And I don't have a single client right now, past or present, who has a marketing department that even partially resembles this structure.
Right. I think there are a couple of shifts that are implied here. I mean, the first one you were mentioning before really dealt with shifting from management via control. Well, management thinking that they need to control, but right now what they really need to do is coordinate and be savvy enough to understand what they don't understand and have the various experts. From the HR standpoint, I think, I don't know if I'm wrong, but in our culture, we still have HR choosing people with degrees and very specific items, and the whole question of skilling up and being able to just conduct what you would call lifelong learning plans and practical knowledge that is somewhat removed from the hiring aspect. So
it is starting to get through in some usually very large corporations and so on. But it also connects back to what Kirk was saying 2 weeks ago about the idea of having people that you can pull in and for different projects and so on. And that connects to what we get to talk about next week, which also includes the gig economy, because the gig economy starts doing this, isn't it? So you set up yourself as you are a person, you know what you're in one of these fields and that's your space. And then multiple clients come to you to do that for them.
Yes.
So it's entrepreneurship, it's self-promotion, it's the person as a brand selling a service, isn't it?
All right, I'll say that you know, I'm not, you know, very good at certain etiquettes, and if I call out anybody who didn't want to be called out, I apologize.
Tracy wasn't getting mad about that.
But I also call up my friend Ken Fennick, who is very qualified to actually comment on this, and
but I'm not seeing him.
And I know he joined temporarily, and I thought he might still be here, but he and I went to school together.
Right.
And you know, so he would have been able to speak to this. I just got a better quality chart if it's still useful, but this is the end thing I wanted to say is that you know, is that I am surrounded by people who are burying their heads in the sand. Okay? And I think that is human nature. I think it is not surprising. And if you do it, you will die. Okay? It is that simple. Even if you don't do it, you may die because you may not make the right decision at the right time. You may be very agile and you jump beautifully into a new fire and burn to death. So the thing about it is, you can't bury your head in the sand. I know people are sitting back and they're just mouthing things. They're hoping a time will pass and they'll get to retire. And I'm seeing people, okay, I'm talking as a person over 60, but I'm seeing people in their 40s and some of them in their 30s who are not prepared to make the adjustment, who are not prepared to rethink about life and therefore about work and how to do things. And they're going to get left behind.
Correct.
They are going to get left behind and they're being left behind. And I tell people, you know, you go into, I will tell you something, I will share something with you, and I know this is not local. It is something I was researching years ago, and it is because it is something I observed, and it is a worldwide phenomenon. There was a time in the advertising industry where the CEO of mega corporations included would not make a fundamental marketing or product or business decision without calling two people first. One of them, of course, was the CFO.
Mm-hmm.
If he wasn't that person to understand, can I afford to do this and what would be the financial implications? And the other person that would be consulted would be the head of his agency or her agency. I cannot remember the last time that I or any CEO I know in my industry was actually called to give that level of profound advice and whose opinion will carry that weight. And it is a thing that's being talked about worldwide. And I think it is not necessarily an accurate perception, but it is certainly not an unfair one. If I was dealing with a tech company that achieved 30% growth for me, and I was talking about somebody who wanted me to do an ad campaign, I know I would listen to the guy who gave me the 30% growth, if it was me.
Correct.
So the question is for people in my industry and people in marketing on the whole is how do we reposition ourselves to be people that provide a value that affects the bottom line of other people's businesses?
Correct.
And if you're not doing that, then what is your job?
Jackie, quick question. How are we for time? I believe this is our wrap up.
It's heading for 20 past. So just want to run through some of the stuff in the chat. Digital education is critical. Innovation has to be a driving force.
Well, that's
and we have to develop a culture of collaboration.
Right.
What do I mean?
Mark made, I think it's very important to highlight this again. We have to prepare our minds and get ready for the unexpected. This idea of just remaining safe and comfortable and digging your head in the sand is not going to work.
No. Let me talk about collaboration a bit in a second. Innovation, for sure. Innovation is what drives the world. You know, they used to say, you know, madness is doing the same thing the same way and expecting a different result.
Mm-hmm.
I've redefined that personally, doing the same thing the same way and expecting the same result. You're not going to get the same result. Far less a different one, you're going to get a diminished result. So, and innovation, the world, and you think about, you know, it is like global warming. The ice caps are melting faster than predicted because life happens as a geometric and not an arithmetic progression. And I think if you look at life and everything in life, that is the case. And the impact of digitization and the internet and the digital world, blah, 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 is a geometric progression of change and not an arithmetic projection of change. For those of us who did O-level maths and add maths. A culture of collaboration. I think to an extent, yes, obviously we do. And I think too that people have to understand what competition is. You know, we used to, you know, we have, I think still some of us have a rather primitive, I might just tell this person, I'll call them back. Yeah, have a rather primitive view of competition that, if I destroy you, I succeed. If I negotiate with you and you walk away wincing, I had a good negotiation, rather than a win-win. I think that collaboration is critical. I think that understanding how you can satisfy customers and give them what you need and so on is far more important than necessarily trying to one-upmanship perhaps a direct competitor. I'm not saying that you don't have direct competitors and you want better share of wallet and all of that. But if something has left my industry that used to be common was wars, and we used to benefit from beer wars. There was a beer war between Carib versus Stag, and then there was the milk war with Milky Milk and Dairy and Kerrygold. And then there was this war and that war and this one, that war. I can't remember the last war we had in our industry. People are fighting them wars like that again. It's far more sophisticated. It's far more subtle. It's far more data-driven. Although one of our problems as a society, of course, and it affects my business chronically, especially in the traditional arena, is that we are an information-deprived society. We don't invest in information, and when we do get it, we barter it for power rather than for sharing, for collective advancement.
Correct.
And if any of you all read Miguel Street sitting down here, if you all haven't, please do. The Character of Hat. When we were studying it in Trinidad, we kind of looked at him as something of a hero because he always knew what was going on, and the narrator kind of had some kind of looked up to him a bit. When I did that book again at university level in Jamaica, their response as Jamaicans was that he was an absolute failure of a human being because he had young people look up to him and he never once used the information he possessed to help anyone. Trinidad, if you look at it, it's a cultural thing and it impacts us in business as well. And I'm speaking broadly to our GA guest about collaboration, is that a friend did it to me once, I ended up in a bit of a pickle. And he looked at me and said, "I can tell you that, I see that happening." And I kind of looked at him and said, "Well, maybe, just maybe, you could have said, Mark, hey, don't go there, please, because this could happen to you." But that wasn't the culturally important thing to do. So I think a lot of Trinidad, and there's a parochialism, we have an idiosyncrasy, we have, and that we are not always the best at collaboration. It was like the West Indies cricket team. I remember being in Jamaica on campus, and every Jamaican I talked to knew that Jamaica was never properly represented on the team. Trinidadians felt the same way, the Bajans felt the same way. Everybody knew that their island had been disadvantaged.
Correct.
So we have to watch those things.
Right.
And yes, collaboration, a culture of collaboration would be a transformative leap for our society. And yes, it would be very, very beneficial, but we are not given to it, We are not given to it as a people. I don't think so. That's my personal view.
So, Mark, thanks very much for that. And we'll have to wrap up here. Just before we wrap up, I just wanted to acknowledge Tracy's comment here, and it dovetails exactly what you have observed. There's a bit of a cold war going amongst the delivery economy folks. We eat, food drop, skip the line, etc. But nothing like Carib versus Stag. Maybe KFC versus Royal Castle versus Churches, Domino's versus Papa John's versus Caesar. So there's that comment, a bit of what the new landscape of competition looks like in TNT. But again, it reinforces the idea that we're not really that collaborative as we should be as a cultural.
It's a cultural issue, and our culture will make us or break us.
Correct.
I have defined culture from my business point of view as a system of permissions and controls. We all want to eat, we all want to screw, we all want to sleep, we all want shelter. Basic primal urges. We are animals and we have all these urges. Culture says it's how it's okay to do it or how it's not okay to do it. Okay? And so if I'm in a carnival band and I wind up my partner wife, he might buy me a beer. If I want to be in a cocktail party and I take a wine on your wife, you probably cuff me down. The culture is determined this is right and this is wrong, and that might be a very basic example, but yes, I think so.
I take it on board with the whole expression of eat a food. I mean, we dispatch and down-cry the whole idea of eat a food, but really and truly, it's about waiting your turn to get an opportunity to eat a food as well.
Yeah.
It's
And it
still a
justifies
conundrum.
corruption. And as a friend of mine says that we are ethically challenged society, I think we have become an ethically challenged society. And I think it is bad for business and it's bad for any industry. And I have a couple of foreigners who work with me, and they are sometimes in shock at how clients would move in the society versus the kind of, you know, the in other words, there's a certain code of conduct that you would behave, a certain demeanor and so on. And we are operating, I think, generally in Trinidad, and it worries me very much that we are falling into an increasingly vulgar culture of human interaction. And I think collaboration is in jeopardy. And I think that we are far from it. And I think that, and I commented the other day that regardless of client or people I work with or whoever, one of the major things I'm coming across as a character trait, which is, and this is a philosophical point perhaps, but that is affecting my ability to engage in business with people, is hubris.
Mm-hmm.
Hubris has become like a dominant character trait that I'm encountering now in business, and we can look at the implications of hubris, you know, and it's in our politics.
Right.
It's in our business. It's in how we treat each other. It's in our value system. And I think that eat of food, and I find the expression vulgar, and that is why I don't like it. And not that vulgar in the sense that I wouldn't use it, but in the sense that it represents a vulgarity of a value system. Eat of food, you know.
Right.
And I have a parting ethos, comment on ethos. I know that it's now 8:27, and you said an hour, and I know I'm going on and on. I think that we do need to understand the implications of the wider culture in terms of progress, and what are the things that would impede collaboration, and, you know, undermine the benefits of competition, for example, etc., etc. And it comes down to, I've been trying to comprehend it because it affects me as a person who markets to people and who has to influence people. I have to understand them. Is that years ago, a generation or two ago, there were louts, lazy people, hardworking people, honest people, dishonest people. In other words, babies popping out 2 generations ago, 1 generation ago, and in this generation, the same basic human beings. We haven't got any better at a primal level or any worse. So if we are seeing changes, there's a change in ethos. It is not because the human being has necessarily changed in the last 30 years, the fundamental human being. And I will tell you this, that if somebody was seen as highly intellectual or very bright before, or had done good things for the society, there'd be a kind of cultural adoration of that person. Even if somebody was just saying it via platitudes, there would be a feeling that I'm supposed at least to show appreciation for that human being. Okay? Because that human being represents this and this to my world, and therefore I should give it a nod and a bow and an acknowledgement. I don't think that those people would get that nod today.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the thing that is getting the nod is the eating of the food.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And that helps us understand why we are not collaborating as much, and why we maybe don't have mentors, and why people no longer
Volunteer.
Mm-hmm.
volunteerism, all of this is not
One of
that.
my staff members today asked me, I said I was going to go and volunteer to, possibly volunteer to go and put some internet in a rural village in Guyana. And she was like, why would you do that? I said, what do you mean, why would I do that? Why would I take vacation to do that? And she could not understand why someone would take vacation to go and help other people.
That's because they're not eating enough food, Jacqueline. But seriously, if you talk about the future of business and advertising and so on, these things will impact. They will impact. I know I'm digressing a bit into a philosophical thing, but they will impact. The inability to collaborate will impact. The ability to embrace change and innovate, because you're debased by eating of food, will impact on our capacity to change. So I think that our society is falling into a low ebb. And I think it is no surprise that we're being left behind in vaccination in the Caribbean, because I think this is just another symptom of who we are. and what we are becoming. And it's going to impact business. It's going to impact our ability to innovate. We are the inventors of pan. We also, I've confirmed this by research, the inventors of crack cocaine. Maybe you should be so proud of it, but we are the inventors of it. We invented Zushin as a way to do cocaine. We invented that as well.
Right.
And what are we inventing now? I am not sure.
Okay, Mark, this has been a wonderful, wonderful conversation.
So.
I think we
I
definitely, the proof is in the pudding. We are half hour about
well, people are sleeping, and that's why they couldn't sign out, Kevon.
There's been so many interesting comments going on in the chat still. There's an issue of mentorship, which is a recurrent theme at this point with the previous conversations we've had. Tracy was talking about the essence of the first mover advantage. And again, a lot of things shrouded in colonialism and this sort of rough awakening that we have. And to summarize some of the things that you were saying tonight, I just wanted to point out these three things. Leveraging information, not that information should be seen as a tool for power, but rather the basis to inform and collaborate and co-create. The point that you made of embracing change, which I think is very critical for our society, being ready to do something different, ready for disruption. And last but not least, collaborate, which again could be one of our sticking points in trying to advance if we don't address that head on. So without further ado, I'd like to thank you tremendously on my behalf, on behalf of ISOC TT. Thank you tremendously for giving of your time and your expertise and your very frank discussion on the state of affairs, on the challenges and the opportunities within the digital advertising arena, or as I should say, the digital marcoms arena. And I will hand over to Jackie now to just give us a brief overview as to what we can expect for our next series.
But before, I have a favor to ask.
Sure.
It's a quick favor. You use the word should. That's a moral thing. I don't remember using the word should.
Okay. To clear the record, perfect.
All right. So that's not that I'm an immoral person, but should implies certain things. Although I may personally feel so. I just want to say a comment about embracing change. If we do not embrace change, we will never innovate, because if we are not open to change, we cannot create change. So that question that came up earlier about innovation, which is critical, if we are holding ourselves back from it. This is not a unique human quality. This is a unique quality to TNT. This is a human thing. It is the culture of leadership that will prepare us to embrace and therefore be creators of change. So we have to look at the quality of our leadership. Maybe you could talk about leadership as it relates to the internet at some point, future point. And yes, and I'm glad that person, the other comment I wanted to make, I'm very glad that person mentioned the word collaboration. I hadn't thought of it. I hadn't come here prepared to discuss it, but it is so fundamentally an issue that we have, along with various others. And Jacqueline, that's the last thing I have to say.
Okay, I just wanted to say thank you very much for coming, and it's been really interesting. You know, we've gone in all sorts of places that we didn't really think about when you talked about marketing and advertising, as into the psychology and so on. So thank you very much, Mark. And our next session is Transportation and Technology, Mobility as a Service, with Unika Morris-Aline, a transportation expert. And the week after that, we talk about the e-judiciary. And then I'll let you know what happens as we book more and more people willing to come and sit down and talk to us about digital.
I'm only sorry that you all are doing this at 7 because I had to skip training today to be here. And I ain't doing that next week, but I would like to sign in for more of these to listen, because I think I could learn some stuff from you also. Thank you very much for having me.
Great. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
And thanks, Lisa, for believing to put him forward.
Great. Okay. Bye.
So peace out.